And we've also got Joggy on the line. Joggy is a friend of the show. He hasn't been on for a while, actually. Also known online as the Indian Body Coach. And Joggy, I know in terms of your own mental health journey, a big part of that, and a kind of instigator for you really dealing with your mental health was grief. So talk to me about that. Talk to me about your experiences.
Yeah, I think it was the loss of my granddad, who was basically like my best friend at the time. The loss of him really kind of pushed me over the edge. But I think for me, it was almost a bit of a gradual decline. Like I noticed that things weren't quite right for me probably when I was about 18 years old. You know, when you go off to university for the first time, it's meant to be quite a fun and exciting experience. But I dreaded it from day one. I hated the course that I'd chosen for myself at the time. I was feeling really lonely, I was feeling scared, feeling out of place. Didn't feel like I kind of fit in with a lot of the kind of uni life and the expectations of, you know, what guys do at university. They drink and they go out and, you know, speak to the opposite sex, really. I think that's one of the normal things that happens, but I didn't enjoy any of it. So I think that was the start of, for me, I think that was the start of something quite negative, which was just turning to alcohol, because alcohol gave me this false sense of confidence. It gave me this ability to talk to people I wouldn't ordinarily talk to, but it was becoming a problem because I was drinking on a Monday night, and then that would be going all the way through to Saturday night, and then I'd go home on a Sunday, sober up, and then start again. And then in that time, you know, losing my granddad, it just completely sent me over the edge, and I spiraled out of control. And to be honest, at that time, I don't think anybody even realised anything was wrong. I certainly didn't.
That's so difficult. Joggy, can I ask you, in terms of the alcohol, was that kind of, did it have a numbing effect? Was the idea that you weren't really coping with what was happening around you, and so the alcohol just allowed that to be numbed effectively?
Do you know what? It was almost like putting a mask on. So you're an unconfident person keeping yourself to yourself, and then suddenly you have a few drinks and you're the life and soul. And then that was almost the mask that I wore, and I could almost carry that off during the day because I was probably still sobering up from the night before. But it was one of those things that just got worse and worse as the time went on. I mean, to the point that I ended up in, you know, prisons and jail cells for the night and that sort of stuff. And I think it was those moments that really had the greatest impact on me. And at the end of the day, it led me towards a suicide attempt that, I mean, I talk about this openly now, but obviously it's still quite painful for me. And, you know, when my family hear me talk about this, especially on social media, I'm such an advocate of mental health and trying to get more people to be aware of it, because it is so common, and we see this all the time, every day. And when I was growing up, there wasn't really anybody really talking about these subjects. And this occurred for me about 12 years ago, before social media had really taken off. And for me personally, I didn't really have a role model to look up to, you know, online, or nobody's really discussing these subjects, to be honest.
Completely. And Juggy, I just want to say, you know, I think it is massively brave of you to talk about this stuff, and it's a massive service actually for everyone listening. Juggy, for you, it can be really difficult. And now I know you speak about this stuff, and you know you're super confident. You have a big social media following, and for a lot of people who see you from the outside, they'd think, "Oh my God, this guy's got like a model life." Do you know what I mean? Everything must be easy for him. And I know from knowing you and having spoken to you, that's not true. You've worked, you know, very, very hard and been very open and been introspective to get where you are. My question to you though is, in terms of being able to join those dots and think about why you were drinking so much, and thinking about that moment where you were actually contemplating ending your life, what allowed you to join the dots and think, okay, this is actually about some more deep-rooted issues?
You know what? I think there was that. It was a light bulb moment for me. So, I mean, in terms of the suicide attempt, I'd literally driven my car over, I think it must have been about 90 miles an hour into a wall. And I've walked away from that event with, you know, covered in glass, covered in cuts, covered in bruises, no seatbelt on. And just surprisingly, I've walked away from it. And I think there was just a sobering moment just there and then that, there's something that I'm meant to be here for, and there's something that I've got a purpose in life that I need to move towards. But even at that point, you're just kind of lost in thoughts. And I think it must have been about 3 weeks later, my mom was so insistent on me seeing a psychologist. And I've been to see people before because she'd kind of picked up the signs. I hadn't, but she had certainly had. And she booked me in for this one person that finally I feel like I connected with, and I was able to talk. And I mean, this is why we have psychologists on board as part of our team, because we recognize, when we're working with people on a day-to-day basis, there's a constant low-level anxiety, a constant low-level depression. And I think it goes back to the why that Seth mentioned just before. It's like people haven't really recognized where these things are stemming from. And they're just medicating with alcohol, with caffeine, with television, with binge eating, but never really understanding, hold on, there's something going on here that's causing me to do these things. And for me, it was the light bulb moment when I spoke to the psychologist, and he gave me this bit, I guess, tools for me to look into myself and say, actually, yes, I have to accept that I'm going through depression now. I have to accept that this is anxiety, but it doesn't define who I am. And he also did explain this to me at the time. He said, every single day you will have a choice, and you will have a choice to go back to the old ways, or you'll have a choice to go forwards and move on and learn from the experiences that you're having and the feelings that you're having. And I think that was huge for me. Every single moment I see as a crossroads now.
Yeah.
From the moment you wake up in the morning, there's a crossroads right there and then. Do you press snooze on the alarm, or do you get up and go and start your day? Yeah. And what do you do with the next kind of hour or two of your day? I think that's such a powerful way to look at your life. You've only really got two choices at any given moment. And you can choose the one that's going to be positive for you, or you can choose the one that takes you down the same old track that hasn't probably worked for you, many times in the past. But yeah, for me, that was such a powerful experience.
You spoke earlier about every day and every situation really being a crossroads, and this idea of constantly making choices. So how are you doing, and how are your days right now? How is your life right now?
Yeah, it's interesting because, I think with the crossroads, some of them are very much subconscious, and then you make them conscious. And then once you've made them conscious, it doesn't feel like you're having to make that choice anymore. So it doesn't feel like it's a crossroads anymore, because you naturally lean towards, the right path for you as an individual. I think for me right now, I think there's always these little evolutions within life. So I even look back at some of the things that I was taught from my initial kind of sessions with a psychologist, and they don't ring true so much today, because at the time I was 22, 23 working with that individual. I'm now 32. I'm married. I've got kids. If we think about the potential traumas that could exist within the family environment, I mean, my wife, who's been on your show, I mean, her father passed away or actually committed suicide. And, my wife was actually in foster care as well. So all these little things that come up and we talk about openly pretty much every day. Obviously, my wife is very much part of an active charity right now, trying to get more Asians to actually foster children. But these are these conversations that come up every single day now in our household. So they could be triggering moments. But I feel like because I've got psychologists on board, with the team that we have when we're working with our clients, but I also have access to a psychologist that I continue to speak to once a month, because I feel like that helps me optimize the way that I think, my thought processes, and gives me a deeper understanding of self. I think that has enabled me to just continue to grow and continue to evolve, despite the additional pressures that you face. As a man, as a man in today's society, where you have to be compassionate, but you also have to be a man. And at the end of the day, there's still some of these traditional, gender-based roles that I feel that, they're kind of, it's almost like you have to live up to a certain expectation of what a man does.
Yes, I think you're completely right that there is there are particular expectations, and a lot of what we prescribe as traditional notions of masculinity are about having let's say an exterior which doesn't share and doesn't show emotion, and that isn't particularly healthy, is it?
Exactly, and I feel that I genuinely feel, because of all the things that I've experienced in my life, especially from an early age. It helped me to, I guess, mature a bit earlier. So I think that's given me a lot of tools. And these are tools that I'm trying to pass down to, my children. I'm trying to pass these to everybody that comes through the door to work with us, to actually get them to understand, what is driving your behaviours today, what is driving the way you feel, and really taking that step back to become more introspective and appreciate why you feel the way you feel, and stop pushing things down and trying to numb the pain, and actually live through the pain and live through the emotions. And I think for me personally right now, I do feel, I'm so grateful for my experiences, what I went through when I was younger, because I don't think me and you would be having this conversation today had I not, got to the point where I had to seek support. I don't think I would be here today talking to you, Mobeen, if I'm perfectly honest, which is why I live with gratitude, and that energy just flows through me every single day.
Joggy, it is so good to speak to you. Honestly, I wish you were in the room. I wish you both were in the room, because I would love to give you a hug, and I'm just sending you so much love and gratitude right now. And I think by you sharing your experiences, you are doing, and I mean this really sincerely, both of you are doing a really great public service. Actually, you really are, and it's an important thing to do. So Joggy and Dr. Saf, thank you so much for your time, and look after yourselves.